Most people think the money problems get easier as you build wealth. They don't. They just get more sophisticated. When you're broke, the traps are obvious. But when you're wealthier, the traps are more subtle, they're quieter, and because of that, they're far more dangerous. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through all 9 traps, milestone by milestone, from your first $10,000 all the way up to $1 million and beyond. Alright, so the first milestone is below $10,000. And trap number 1 is thinking that your income is the whole problem. You see, when you're just starting out, it's easy to think that the reason you're not building any wealth is simply because you're not earning enough. And sometimes, yeah, that's true. But a lot of the time, the problem is actually more behavioral. There's no system, there's no tracking, there's no savings habit, and every bit of spare cash gets treated as spendable. The uncomfortable truth at low net worths is as follows. It doesn't matter if your income doubled tomorrow, because for most people, their lifestyle would also double, and so their costs would increase just as much as their income, and this is because the behavior hasn't changed. You see, the trap isn't your income, it's your defaults. I mean, I remember checking my bank account one time a couple of years ago and realizing that even though I'd made good money, I actually hadn't improved whatsoever because I just spent everything in the excess. So here's what to do. You want to build the system first. Money buckets, automatic transfers, saving the second money lands, not whatever's left at the end of the month. And at this stage, the amount matters less than developing the habit itself. And if you need somewhere to get started with this habit, you can download my completely free monthly expenses tracker and budget template using the first link in the description down below. The second trap at this milestone is staying in survival mode for too long. And the key in this trap is never building a buffer. You see, when you're at a low net worth level, then every unexpected expense can become a mini crisis. Car breaks down, crisis. Boiler goes, crisis. And the problem is that when your life is 1 week away from financial chaos, you can't think clearly or plan for the long term. You're constantly in reactive mode. And the trap here isn't the emergency itself. The trap is staying financially fragile for so long that you never actually graduate out of survival mode. And so something like getting to your first $1,000 saved in your bank account to cover your monthly expenses isn't just something that's practical. It's also psychological. It changes your relationship with money because once you have a bit of a cushion, even just say a month's worth of expenses, you can relax just a little bit because you know that if something unexpected comes up, it doesn't have to be a crisis anymore. You have money available to deal with it. So what do we do about this trap? Well, before we start thinking about investing, before we start thinking about index funds and portfolio allocations and things like that, we need to build an emergency fund. Start with just $1,000, then build up to 1 month living expenses, 3 months, and then finally 6 months of your basic living costs in a high interest savings account. That will give you phenomenal peace of mind. Net worth milestone number 2 is between $10,000 and $100,000, which brings us nicely onto trap number 3, which is that lifestyle creep begins earlier than you think. You see, most people think that lifestyle inflation is a rich person's problem, but it's not. It can happen to anyone at any income level. As soon as your income ticks up, even slightly, the tendency is to see that extra money as spendable and expand your lifestyle to meet your new income level. A new apartment, more eating out, more holidays. It feels deserved. You worked hard. Of course you deserve the upgrade. And that's exactly what makes it a trap. So what do we do about this? Well, keep your fixed costs controlled. That's the fundamental principle here. Whenever you get a pay rise, make sure that you keep at least 50% of the increase in your pay, push that towards your savings and investments. Now, of course, there are some things that are absolutely worth upgrading when you do finally get some money. I made a video about this recently. You can watch it by clicking on the card just up there. And trap number 4 is staying too conservative for too long. You see, once your emergency fund is in place, sitting on a big pile of cash sitting in the bank, rather than going out into the market and earning 7 or 8% compound interest over a long period of time, is actually quietly holding you back. And that's not caution, that's quietly leaking wealth. And I understand, right? Cash feels safe, but keeping cash in the bank for a long period of time, say 10 plus years, is a form of risk. It's just a slower, quieter one. You see, when you hold cash in the bank, it gets quietly eaten away by inflation over time. If you're earning 1% or less interest on your money in the bank, but inflation is sitting at 2 to 3%, then you're actually getting poorer by keeping that money in the bank. And I know how counterintuitive that sounds, but that's just how inflation works. And the trap here is really confusing saving with investing. Saving and investing are two completely different things, and it's imperative that we don't confuse the two. So what do? Well, once we have a buffer in place, i.e. our emergency fund, any money that we don't need for another 10 years or more should not be sitting as cash in the bank. Instead, it should be sitting in investments. Think low-cost index funds, something like this, where your money can work a lot harder and earn you 7, 8+% per annum compounded versus 1% interest in the bank. So the key here is to start compounding. Delaying the process is expensive, more expensive than most people realize. Milestone number 3 is a net worth of $100,000 or more, which brings us nicely onto trap number 5, and this is over concentration. You see, as your wealth grows, there is a real risk that too much of it is sitting in one class of asset. It could be one employer's stock options, one property, one business, one crypto asset, or one brilliant idea. And often this actually happens through success rather than failure. You see, whatever thing you've invested in, that thing grows, and it grows some more, and then it grows some more again. And so you don't really want to take your money out of it because you think it's going to keep growing, right? And then before you know it, it becomes 60, 70, 80% of your total net worth. When you get to this stage, concentration built most of your net worth. But unfortunately, lack of diversification can also destroy it. And this is because not all assets move in the same direction with the economy. So what do we do here? Well, we want to set a ceiling. We want no more than 20 to 25% of our net worth sitting in a particular holding. Diversify before you need to, not after the fall. Milestone number 4 is $500,000 plus. And trap number 6 is all about complexity that masquerades as sophistication. Something happens when wealth grows, right? Things just get complicated. More accounts, more platforms, a private deal here, a tax wrapper there, ISAs, LLCs. You see, each individual decision might make sense on its own, but collectively, you run the risk of actually building something that you can't clearly see anymore. And here's the thing, complexity feels sophisticated. It feels like you're doing something smart, but what you could actually be doing is running the risk of creating blind spots that you can't see. So what do we do here? Well, simplify, simplify, simplify. Understand every single asset that you own. Never invest in something that you don't understand, and only ever outsource the administration. Don't outsource the actual choosing the investment, right? Trap number 7 is asset rich but cash poor. This one's a funny one because you can look wealthy on paper, but in reality, you can actually be quite financially fragile. And this is what's known as the illiquidity trap. And this often arises when your net worth is tied up in property, in businesses, in shareholdings, and your actual accessible cash is surprisingly thin. And this can become a problem when opportunity strikes, or when disaster strikes, or when life just happens and you need a bit of cash. So what do we do here? Well, we want to keep 3 to 6 months of our basic living costs in a high interest, easily accessible bank account. We can call this our emergency fund. And this is important regardless of your net worth, because the key thing to remember here is that paper net worth is not actually worth anything until it's converted into cash. And even at a much higher net worth, you still need to stick to the basics and keep a 3 to 6 month emergency fund. Milestone number 5 is $1 million plus net worth, which brings us on to trap number 8, which is tax inefficiency. At this level, your biggest enemy often isn't actually market volatility, but it is tax. Poor asset allocation, selling carelessly to trigger capital gains, ignoring wrappers and structures that could legally reduce your tax, failing to plan for inheritance, and just generally treating tax as more of an afterthought rather than planning for it. Improving your tax efficiency by even 1 to 2% over many years can actually have quite a dramatic compounding effect on your overall net worth. So what do? Well, firstly, we have to realize that at this stage, what we keep is just as important as what we earn. Get smart about your tax structure. Work with a good tax specialist and financial advisor to make sure everything is 100% legal. Because remember, the cost of good advice is dwarfed by the cost of poor or illegal tax planning. And trap number 9 is building a financially rich life that still feels personally poor. Everybody wants to get rich. But the problem is you hit a number, $1 million, whatever that number is. And then there's a moment of what? Relief? Pride? Maybe. But what I hear often over and over again is that there's just a strange hollowness after your number is hit. And that's because the traps at this level aren't financial necessarily anymore. They're more existential. And the trap is to continue to operate at this level on the same settings that you operated in order to get to that level, optimizing for income, optimizing for that particular number, even when that number is no longer the constraint anymore. Because at the end of the day, if your net worth is now in a position that makes you secure, but you're still grinding in a way that is detrimental to your health, detrimental to your relationships, detrimental to your family, and detrimental to your time, you haven't won the money game at all. You've just transferred the poverty from your bank account into your personal life. So what do we do here? Well, the first thing to do is to actually just reevaluate your goal. Use wealth to buy back time. Don't use it to buy random things. Invest in relationships. Stop optimizing for more when enough is already there. Really think about your priorities. Is that bigger house or that better car really worth sacrificing your health for? Is it really worth sacrificing the time that you could be spending with those that you love for? Get your priorities right when you get to this level. I'm genuinely curious, which one of these traps hit closest to home for you? And which milestone do you think changes the game the most? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'll read every single one. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I know you'll love this one. But don't go just yet. Please make sure to drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you over there. Bye.